I'm back again in Washington, D.C. Today, of course, is the opening of the 116th Congress, but I didn't come for that. I came for the first hearing in Corsi versus Mueller back at the Pretty Man Federal District Courthouse here, 333 Constitution Avenue. And the hearing will begin in about 30 minutes. I wanted to make sure I got here early this time. Don't want to miss Dr. Corsi. I know his attorney, Larry Klayman, is already inside. I haven't been able to get word if the doctor has arrived yet or not. There are some members of the press here waiting. Not as crowded as it was when General Flynn had his last hearing, but there are certainly people here. I think that's more press than what we saw for Imran Awan. I'm just going to wait a few minutes, and if Dr. Corsi doesn't arrive, I'll go inside. Of course, I'm not allowed to record inside the courthouse. I don't understand that rule, but that is the rule. And we're going to be hearing arguments in front of Judge Leon today. Dr. Corsi has alleged that Robert Mueller has engaged in prosecutorial misconduct. We've heard from other journalists, including Jack Persovic, that Mueller's special counsel team has used interrogation tactics that aren't even allowed to be used on detainees in Guantanamo Bay. So it's pretty interesting. And certainly when Dr. Corsi first announced this suit, immediately there was a smear story that came out in the Daily Caller. Was it Chuck Ross wrote a story about Dr. Corsi's efforts to raise some money for a cancer victim. I don't know what really came of all that, but it seems to be standard practice that these smear tactics happen. We see the same thing happening in social media that we see in the mainstream media. Basically, this whole thing is nonsense, in my view. They're alleging that Dr. Corsi was in communication with WikiLeaks and that WikiLeaks is connected to Russia. I've been asking the question, if Robert Mueller is really truly interested in Donald Trump associates who have business relationships with Russia, why has he not questioned Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary, someone who we've seen documentation that he had business dealings in Russia that he specifically hid during his confirmation as Secretary of Commerce. So I don't know what that's all about, but I think that when we look at all of this information together, Robert Mueller is not conducting an actual investigation. Robert Mueller was the FBI director when 9/11 happened. Charles Ortel has gone over countless points of evidence that indicate that Robert Mueller totally ignored any of the crimes going on related to the Clinton Foundation, it being only legally authorized to construct and maintain a presidential library in Arkansas. Everything else the Clinton Foundation has done has been outside of its tax-exempt mandate. So why Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, James Comey, and all these guys never investigated that is quite interesting. I don't know if we'll hear anything about that today. Let's see what the comments say. Yes, Fran, it's a weaponized criminal justice system. You've hit it on the head. This case, personally for Dr. Corsi, obviously it's very important. He's been under tremendous pressure. We shouldn't discount the physical and psychological toll that something like this has on anyone. Dr. Corsi is 71 or 72 years old. He's under tremendous pressure. He's under financial pressure, obviously. And there are some people around the internet who think it's like funny or fun to mock Dr. Corsi, make fun of him. I don't think those people really consider the impact this has on the doctor's well-being, even if he prevails. So I would urge people to, even if you disagree with Dr. Corsi politically, even if you disagree with the findings in his books, this is an extremely important case, because unless you like the idea that the FBI and its former directors can just go around accusing people of stuff, interrogate them for hours, put them through a legal rigmarole that drains them financially when they aren't guilty of anything, and the person doing the prosecuting is way outside the mandate of the special counsel's office, what he's supposed to even be able to do. Unless you want those things to happen, you should be rooting for Dr. Corsi and Larry Klayman. And I hope that people will go to Corsi Nation. Volume's not good. Well, I've got this microphone today, so I apologize about that. There's always a different situation. Yes, people are so cruel lately. You're right, American Rebel. It's hard to read that. People are very cruel. The internet is very cruel. Patty cakes. Alex Jones and Dr. Corsi seem to have a falling out. I don't know what the details are there, but again, I don't think Alex Jones should be bashing Corsi. I think this is about the people of the United States versus a tyrannical FBI, a tyrannical special counsel's office. Robert Mueller is a guy who should be being investigated. Why did he not reveal the information in the 28-page report from Bob Graham's Senate Intelligence Committee related to 9/11? Why did Robert Mueller's FBI collect all the surveillance footage from cameras around the Pentagon? We've never seen that. I didn't vote for Robert Mueller. I don't think Robert Mueller should be making decisions for everybody in the United States. I don't like Robert Mueller at all. There was actually a great video segment that I saw where Ray McGovern asked Robert Mueller if he thought it was okay to use information illegally obtained by the NSA by spying on people's computers and eavesdropping on their electronic communications, to use that information in what Ray McGovern called parallel construction. Robert Mueller feigned ignorance of that term, but parallel construction is where they find some information about someone and then they use that information in conjunction with a fake story to frame the person or otherwise, nail them for a crime or get them into some sort of legal something or other where they can tie them up in court like this. Dr. Corsi could be writing a book right now. He could be live streaming, but instead he's busily defending himself. I mean, he could go to jail. The game that Robert Mueller's special counsel office seems to be playing, and it's higher stakes with some than with others. But we saw what was going on with General Flynn. There's another case brewing in Virginia that they seem to be holding over Flynn's case. I really hope Donald Trump opens an investigation into Robert Mueller's investigation. And I think Mueller knows that in and of itself seems a bit ridiculous, but it's just unbelievable. He's able to investigate whoever he wants. Paul Manafort gets his door kicked in and gets thrown into solitary confinement. I have a feeling that all of these people have information that's going much deeper than Russian prostitutes urinating on a bed. So that's very interesting. Hey, Mike Barden there in the comments. My pleasure, Mike. Yeah, it is a bigger deal than people realize. Michael Barden is somebody who has been on the business end of a weaponized justice system, and it's not fun. It's not pretty, and it cannot be allowed to go on any longer. I really do hope that Larry prevails in this case. I think it's also important for people to know that Larry also defended a guy named Dennis Montgomery. Dennis Montgomery was a contractor to, I believe, the NSA, maybe the FBI. He was selling them some software that was intended to, I don't know exactly what it did. It was searching for criminals or terrorists or something like that. And then there was an allegation that his software was a hoax. I don't know that much about that case, but I do know that Larry was defending Dennis Montgomery and that Judge Leon was presiding. So we've got Judge Leon again today, and I'm interested in learning about how this courthouse works. Before I started Crowdsource the Truth, I had never been to this courthouse before, and I didn't know any of these judges. I still don't know them, but I'm aware of them now. And it's interesting to see how all these different cases interact. Robert Mueller is back, and he's the guy who was spying on Montgomery, spying on Larry Klayman. There was an article earlier today, where did I see it? Alan Jones and Mary Fanning. They had written about this case and everything that was happening with Dennis Montgomery. I'm trying to keep one eye on the sidewalk in case Dr. Corsi arrives. But basically they were talking about how Robert Mueller's FBI was illegally spying on people in that case. And this is what they do. Robert Mueller is basically following J. Edgar Hoover's playbook, except he's got such a tremendous advantage in terms of the sophistication that he's got. J. Edgar Hoover could never have had as much intelligence on as many people as Robert Mueller now does. And the fact of the matter is, we're living in a country right now where if you get in the way of the Department of Justice or individuals like Robert Mueller, they have a really scary degree of power to ruin your life, even without finding you guilty for something. And this concept of contractors to the U.S. government, I think that's something that we need to look at much more closely in 2019. Bill Binney has told us that the contractors to the NSA were the biggest threat to national security or the stability of that agency, the integrity of that agency that he could think of, because these contractors don't have the same goals as people that are working for the government. The contractors are very interested in keeping their contracts going and making money. And I think we're seeing a lot more government contractors than we're aware of. I think there are a lot of people who claim to be delivering news but are actually trying to subvert communities and defame people. And I find the level of smear that was going on against Dr. Corsi, even before this Robert Mueller subpoena came down, I just find it unbelievable. We saw many different social media personalities putting out stories about Dr. Corsi, in many cases unfounded with evidence. They'll show one photograph of somebody with somebody else and jump to the conclusion that that means he's an agent or whatever. They'll take one conversation, one offer made, and presume that to mean that somebody is employing somebody or paying somebody to do something. I mean, people need to be very, very discerning. They really need to look at whatever the news source is with a careful and healthy degree of skepticism. Of course, we saw that Guardian article about Paul Manafort meeting with Julian Assange. I mean, totally fake. The degree to which people are putting out totally fake stories and other people are just believing them because they contain content that is appealing to the listener is scary. So I think that we really all want to work together to make sure we have an environment where the news is held accountable and is truthful, and the Department of Justice is engaged in delivering justice. So, I don't know, I think Dr. Corsi must be inside with Larry right now. Let's see. Yeah, thanks everybody. I appreciate everybody watching. We have 721 people watching right now. I do want to remind everyone that traveling around and going to these events, it costs a lot of money, and I've taken a real hit on Patreon as a result of this dust up with Sargon of Assad. I really do object to the suppression of the First Amendment. I mean, we got to look around, folks. There's a lot of scary stuff going on. You know, we're supposed to have freedom of speech. We're supposed to have freedom in our homes and of our personal effects, but we don't have any of that. If MasterCard or Twitter or YouTube or whoever doesn't like what you're saying, they can cut you off. And if the cops or the FBI decide they want to come into your house, they can do that. So I'm really confused about this Patreon situation. When I met Jack Conte in Los Angeles, spoke to him for actually a pretty extended period of time, he was a sincere guy who really seemed like he wanted to do the right thing. And I haven't seen any public statements from him about this banning of Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. Haven't seen any public statements from him. There was a quote attributed to him in the New York Times, but I don't believe the New York Times. I think anybody could have written that quote. If it's not what Conti said and he doesn't like the content of the quote, there's not too much that he can do. But I would like to ask people to stick with us as sponsors. If you're there right now, please stay on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, at least until the end of January. We're trying to get a Subscribestar page hooked up, but Subscribestar, when they sort of rose to prominence after this ban on Sargon of Akkad, immediately they had their payment processing pulled. So again, we need to ask ourselves, does shutting out Patreon solve anything? Is it even Patreon's fault that this is happening, or are they being forced to do this by Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal, or something like that? So maybe canceling Patreon does nothing. Maybe you shouldn't use your Visa card. I don't know. I'm just saying, I hope that people won't punish individual creators like Crowdsource the Truth and the guests that I have on the show. Had a great conversation with Brian Vukadinovich last night. We're going to try, hopefully Subscribestar gets their billing online pretty soon, and we're going to try to start a Subscribestar page and maybe bring back Brian's really great show, the Counter Lawfare Report. If people haven't seen that show, you can go back into the Crowdsource the Truth archives and take a look at it and become a sponsor of Brian. That would definitely encourage him to come back and do the show. But today is going to be about Dr. Corsi. I hope that people will go to CorsiNation.com, support the doctor's fight against Robert Mueller. You can also go to LarryKlayman.com and support Larry. FreedomWatchUSA.org, of course, is Larry's law firm website. I think they must be inside, and what I'll do is I'm going to go inside and make sure I don't miss any of the proceedings. I do expect to have an opportunity to speak to Larry and Dr. Corsi afterwards, so I hope that people will join us later tonight. And of course, tonight, only on Patreon, we're going to have the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please stand by for more information about Corsi versus Mueller. Trial of the century. I'm not kidding. It actually is a very important case. The outcome of this will play a major role in the pending impeachment of Donald Trump. Thanks for watching, everybody.